bells, with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I'm not sure that we used to celebrate VE Day or even the end of the Second World War until recent years, and that's a reflection of the fact that the veterans who fought and took part in that campaign and everyone on the home front are themselves disappearing. Yes, it's partly to do with education. There are huge political pressures on what's in education and in the history package, which of course isn't compulsory. When we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was a much higher understanding of what past sacrifice meant. And people, of course, were seen far more often in uniform in the streets, and they were coming back from operational service and about to depart. And that all makes a huge difference. Now, of course, war is very distant. It's in the Gulf. It's in Ukraine. It's not impacting us in the same way that it was doing about 20 years ago.
Matthew, let's bring you in at this stage. Do you think Gen Z is ignorant to Britain's war heroes, or do you think it's just a lack of curiosity?
Yeah, I don't think Gen Z are ignorant. They're just a matter of being the way they've been brought up, how they've been brought up, and when they've been brought up. You know, when this generation have been coming through school, there hasn't been the veterans, because the veterans of the Second World War and the First World War have passed away. So it's not in their face as much. The rhetoric that they're getting taught in schools has been influenced a lot in the past sort of 30, 40 years with more left-wing, and I don't mean, I'm not trying to drag this into a political bias, but there is more left-wing rhetoric getting passed out in school.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of May. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
He is now choosing to buy dirty Russian oil. That money will be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't he ashamed?
The only people that benefit when we play party politics in here on Russia and Ukraine is Putin.
Well, a furious crash at Prime Minister's questions as Kemi Badenoch accuses Sir Keir Starmer of buying dirty Russian oil after lifting some sanctions. The Prime Minister insists the exemptions are temporary and part of a tougher sanctions package, but critics say Labour is backtracking on Ukraine. It's a far cry from the united front with Ukraine in March last year.
No lifting of any kind of sanctions until Russia will stop this war.
The government has also scrapped plans to hike fuel duty in September after pressure from drivers and rising costs linked to the Middle East. Another Labour U-turn?
The PM gets ahead of a speech by the Chancellor tomorrow to set out plans not to go ahead with a 5p increase in fuel duty until December this year. Relief for drivers, but still concerns about the cost of living crisis.
Elsewhere, Rachel Reeves is reportedly pushing supermarkets to cap food prices as inflation fears grow after the Iran war and, of course, extra costs for farmers. A dangerous return to the 1970s, perhaps, or is it Soviet?
I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory.
Well, remember that. MPs are now slamming the Prime Minister's attempt to enforce mandatory digital ID on the public, claiming it's been a fiasco. But should it go ahead at all?
Elsewhere, Arsenal win the Premier League for the first time in 22 years as Gooners paint North London red.
That's right, for years Arsenal have chased Manchester City, but last night it was Manchester City that couldn't chase them. We're live here outside the Emirates throughout the programme this evening and this afternoon to give you all the reaction and the celebration from fans.
Yes, Keir Starmer had to mention Arsenal, didn't he? As if it's relevant to the conversation around Russian oil.
It's one of the few authentic things about him, though. He really does actually genuinely like football. Although, strangely, quite a lot of the general public don't believe that he likes football, even though he really does, which perhaps says something about his political communication style.
Well, even robots like football, I suppose. Can like football.
I suppose you can program them too, yeah, absolutely. I have to say it didn't particularly move me that Arsenal won the Premier League. I mean...
that shot from Sam right in the hubbub there was brilliant. Yeah, it was like we had a little drone overhead. That's brilliant.
I mean, at what point do we say the football's just been won and we all stop playing it?
I don't know.
Do we just sort of do we declare a winner? Because it's always another game. Anyway, we're also
lots
talking.
Of football lovers watching us right now, Tom. Please put on a facade.
No.
Anyway, Russian oil. Did Kemi Badenoch win that match in the Prime Minister's questions? I think she very much did.
I think the Prime Minister retreated to process, and if you're trying to argue on technicalities and process, you're already losing. The fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister tried to argue that in order to apply new sanctions, he needed to lift current sanctions.
Yeah.
I'm not sure many people are going to buy that as an excuse. I think much more clearly he's worried about the cost of energy and he's thinking, goodness me, how is he going to make energy a little bit cheaper? And he's turned to Vladimir Putin rather than our own oil and gas.
Yeah. And as Kemi Badenoch pointed out, how many jobs a day? Thousands of jobs, she was saying, have been lost in Aberdeen as a result of these, what she called sanctions against our own oil and gas industry. I mean, make it make sense. Do let us know your thoughts, gbnews.com/your say. But it is your news headlines with Tatiana.
Emily, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories this hour. Sir Keir Starmer has paused a planned 5p increase in fuel duty, extending the freeze until the end of the year. Fuel duty had been due to rise between September and March next year. The Prime Minister says the extension is due to the conflict in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister defended the UK loosening sanctions on Russian oil. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch earlier said watering down sanctions is insane.
None of the existing sanctions are being lifted in any way. So this is not less pressure on Russia, it is more pressure on Russia. More pressure than there was the day before yesterday, more pressure than there was under the last government. What is happening is that those sanctions are being phased in a way which was used by the last government when they introduced new sanctions. We bothered to do the processology and work out what we were doing and supported it because we could see that it put more pressure on Russia. Similar methods are used by other countries. They are done because of the impact on the market and to protect UK consumers.
I've heard this tone before. This is the same tone he used during the Mandelson scandal, and they were all cheering, and then it turned out that he was wrong. He says that other countries are doing this. The EU is not doing this. Let me make it clear. I know it hurts him to hear it. He is now choosing to buy dirty Russian oil. That money will be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't he ashamed?
The Treasury is reportedly encouraging major supermarkets to introduce voluntary price caps on everyday essentials as food inflation climbed to 3.7% in April. Under the proposed scheme, retailers would limit the cost of staple items such as bread, milk and eggs. In return, the government could offer incentives, including relaxed packaging requirements and delays to healthy food regulations. Marks & Spencer has warned that supermarkets are being held back by a triple whammy of headwinds, including higher taxes, red tape and disruption caused by the Iran war. Stuart Machin, the chief executive of Marks & Spencer, highlighted the problems facing grocers in a trading update today, which revealed that profits fell by almost £150 million last year. He issued the warning less than 24 hours after it emerged that the Chancellor was pressuring retailers to start capping food prices, prompting a furious response from senior figures in the industry. Meanwhile, inflation has fallen to 2.8% in the year to April. That's a 0.5 percentage point fall from the 3.3% recorded in the 12 months to March. Economists had widely expected inflation to ease, but only to 3% on the back of a lower energy price cap that came into force on the 1st of April. Ofgem lowered its energy price cap by 7% or £10 a month for the average household using both electricity and gas, which was driven by government measures to reduce bills. In other news today, an historic day in sports as Arsenal win the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. That was the very moment the Arsenal squad reacted to the win after Manchester City drew 1-1 at Bournemouth. It ends a run of 3 straight second-place finishes, with the trophy lift set to take place at Selhurst Park on Sunday. The Prime Minister was asked about the win as he left for Prime Minister's questions this morning.
Arsenal champions of England, Prime Minister! Yes. Did you celebrate winning the league? Yes.
Meanwhile, an unprecedented situation for Southampton as the team is kicked out of the Championship playoff final for spying. The club have also been docked 4 points for next season, with Middlesbrough reinstated to the playoffs and set to take Southampton's place in Saturday's final against Hull. Southampton have already confirmed their intention to appeal. Channel 4 Chief Content Officer Ian Katz said the broadcaster ensured that women involved were kept safe when any issues were raised to us and were given appropriate support. It's after allegations of rape and sexual misconduct were made by Married at First Sight UK participants. Meanwhile, Dame Caroline Dinage, chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, has written to Channel 4 and Ofcom with serious concerns about their response to, quote, the horrifying allegations about Married at First Sight. Well, since then, Channel 4 Chief Executive Priya Dogra has commented saying she was deeply sorry for the distress caused to Married at First Sight UK participants who alleged they were raped and sexually assaulted by their partners. The Metropolitan Police are encouraging anyone who believes they may have been a victim of sexual assault after participating on the reality TV show to contact them. It says all 3 men accused of wrongdoing on the show deny the allegations. Channel 4 earlier said this. Channel 4 believes that when concerns related to contributor welfare were raised through existing welfare and production protocols, prompt and appropriate action was taken based on the information available at the time. Channel 4 strongly refutes any claim to the contrary. And Vladimir Putin was welcomed to Beijing earlier today. During a meeting between the superpowers, the Russian president told Xi Jinping that the relationship between the two countries had reached an unprecedentedly high level. Xi has called his counterpart an old friend and has described their ties as unyielding. The two leaders signed more than 20 agreements on trade and tech. And those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 10 minutes past 1. Now, Sir Keir Starmer faced his first Prime Minister's questions since Labour's local election bloodbath. The Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, attacked the Prime Minister over his refusal to grant new North Sea oil and gas licences. Indeed, his legislation to ban new exploration in the North Sea, while lifting some sanctions on Russian oil.
He is so deep in the bunker, Mr. Speaker. He's importing sanctioned Russian oil. He's nationalising steel. He's imposing price controls in the supermarket. Yeah. It's like the Soviets won.
Well, should we speak to our political editor, Christopher Hope? Christopher, strong stuff from the leader of the opposition. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, it does seem strange, doesn't it, I think, Emily, that we aren't allowing drilling in the Jackdaw fields, the Rosebank fields in the North Sea. That's in the in-tray for the environment, for the Net Zero Secretary, Ed Miliband, and yet here we are allowing Russia to lift sanctions on some Russian oil to alleviate pressure on air fuel prices. They can only defend that really through the cost of living lens, because as Kevin Badenoch says, what you're doing here is you're frankly allowing Russian dirty money, dirty oil to be traded. Eventually that will fund weaponry for Russia, which could cost Ukrainian lives. Let's have a look at what the argument was made there by Kevin Badenoch.
He is now choosing to buy dirty Russian oil. That money will be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't he ashamed?
The only people that benefit when we play party politics in here on Russia and Ukraine is Putin.
And that debate is dominating the briefing happening right now with the PM's official spokesman to work out why on earth this is happening and why can't we drill more oil and gas in the North Sea. The big news, though, from the PMQs just now is the fact that this freeze on petrol duty won't go up by 5p in the end of August, and that will be frozen until December the 31st, going past the date, of course, of the budget expected in October, November, allowing the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to set it further. That is a relief. That will save £125 for drivers. They say the government, the fuel duty is at its lowest level for 16 years. Also good news for hauliers. The 12-month road tax holiday is now announced will happen. It will cost £1 to renew your road tax if you're a haulier rather than £600. All this is part ahead of a speech tomorrow given by Rachel Reeves. She'll set out further measures. She may go towards issues of surplus food, how to deal with that, how to use any further ways of pulling levers within government to try and lift pressure from the cost of living crisis, because what looks pretty certain is that inflation is going to go up as all the dramas over the Strait of Hormuz and the issues with Iranian oil and gas, as they are fed through to the bottom line. The cost of living crisis will get worse, and the Chancellor will give a speech tomorrow to try and get ahead of that.
Now, on the plus side for the government, these are announcements that will help people with the cost of living, whether that's hauliers or fuel duty. But on the negative side of the ledger for the government, these are U-turns. In the last budget that the Chancellor gave before the House, she was expecting to raise these taxes. So now, and forgive me for using this phrase, there is a black hole in the finances of this country. The Chancellor is going to have to cut some spending or raise tax elsewhere to fill the hole that she budgeted for, which was raising fuel duty.
And that's why these measures are more normally announced in the budget. And until today, we were always told, in fact, we were told on Monday at the lobby briefing, Tom, when we asked, can you make these changes outside of a budget? No, all tax measures are announced as usual in a budget. So what's happened here is the government's ripped up that idea and has gone ahead and confirmed this 5p increase in fuel duty won't go ahead in August. That is a reversal from where they were on Monday. But really, for me, it's all hands to the pumps as they pump out all sorts of measures and policy changes to try and distract from the other part of politics which is happening, which is who will replace Sir Keir Starmer. We're expecting a speech from Wes Streeting, the former Health Secretary who resigned last week, to the House of Commons, probably between 2:15 and 3 p.m. We'll have that live on GB News. That is so important for Wes Streeting, of course. While everyone thinks about Andy Burnham, can he get back into politics through a by-election, Wes Streeting is trying to get to attract 81 MPs to support his chance to be the next to take on Sir Keir Starmer. He may have as many as 40 at the moment, but he'll use that moment in the House of Commons when all of his team will be gathered round him to try and convince other Labour MPs to support him and convince them that he's the guy to replace Sir Keir Starmer, despite the fact only a tiny minority, it seems, of Labour members want him to be that person.
Well, thank you very much, Christopher Hope there from Westminster Hall in Westminster following that PMQ session. One other thing that's been making the headlines is Rachel Reeves apparently talking to all the supermarkets, asking them to basically cap the price of basic food items. So a loaf of bread, a pint of milk, what else? Eggs and things. A lot of things that come from our farmers who've been a bit under the cosh. And this, of course, suggests that inflation may well get worse, even though it's dropped a little recently, well, the news today. But Stuart Machin, the boss of Marks and Spencer's, he's had a lot to say. He's warning that retailers are already facing a triple whammy of higher taxes, red tape, global instability, and warning of a return to 1970s-style price controls.
Well, let's speak now to the former Labour councillor, Simon Greaves. Simon, this sort of argument from the Chancellor now, if indeed she does go ahead with sort of telling supermarkets to cap their prices, it almost assumes that prices are like taxes, that they can just be chosen arbitrarily to be high or low. Is the Chancellor misunderstanding why prices are rising? I mean, farmers are having lower yields, more expensive fertiliser. They need to charge more to just survive. How on earth can we just ignore the reality of prices?
Well, I don't think those points are lost on the Chancellor at all. I think what you've got is a wider picture here where the Chancellor is making it very clear that companies cannot be profiteering on the backs of a very difficult time for families across the UK. And so what you really see here are enhanced powers for the Competitions and Markets Authority to investigate issues where there are price increases. We've seen lots of noises.
Hang on, Simon. We heard from the government this morning on the round, I think it was Dan Tomlinson, who's one of the Treasury ministers, and he was saying that supermarkets are a highly competitive market. He didn't suggest that there was any suggestion of supermarkets profiteering over the price of milk. In fact, the profit margin is absolutely tiny, if at all, on those types of products for supermarkets. But then he said, oh, well, the CMA needs greater teeth. It needs stronger teeth. We need to empower this regulator more to investigate. I mean, how is that going to help supermarkets remain competitive?
Well, supermarkets make huge profits, whether we like it or not, they do. And I think that what people would want to see and have assurance on is that the staples of everyday life are not being taken advantage of to hike up prices. And I do think that it's very sensible for the Competition and Markets Authority to have more teeth to ensure that people are getting a fair price. It's a very competitive
Waitrose,
environment.
for example. So Simon, how would this actually work? So if Waitrose decides to charge £1.50 for a loaf of bread, and the CMA decides that that's too much, what are they going to do?
I think you'd have to ask them that, and that's the real answer to it. But let's look. The government are not going to be imposing the price of a pint of milk. That's very obvious. But if you go to Croatia, you'll find 100 products there that do have government-imposed prices. And if you go to Hungary, which is not a socialist utopia at all, you'll find that Viktor Orban made it appropriate to impose 100 price caps on staples.
Simon, are you
for
seriously
families
suggesting that this government should follow in the mould of arguably the most authoritarian leader in the democratic world?
No, I'm not. I'm telling you that other countries have gone down that route, and I don't think it's entirely sensible at all. But there are measures that the government are looking at to ensure that people are not ripped off.
So you don't think that's sensible? So why mention it if you don't think it's sensible?
I mention it because it goes to see that other countries are wrestling with these problems and looking at ways to tackle them. And the government, I would say, sensibly, are looking at enhancing the opportunities of the Competitions and Markets Authority to intervene and to ask pointed questions about prices. I think that's a sensible thing to do.
Isn't the sensible thing here to not look at the outputs, the sort of end of the process, but look at why the prices are rising in the first place?
Genius!
I mean, if the government was serious about making fuel cheaper for farmers, making fertiliser cheaper for farmers, making sure that farmers weren't taxed so much, that would then reduce the input cost of the food that we end up buying in the supermarkets. Instead, they're imposing all of these costs on the beginning of the process and are surprised that at the end of the conveyor belt, the prices have gone up. I mean, it stands to reason.
Not necessarily. But the reality is that the costs across the economy have increased. and the government has wanted to make sure that people get a fair price at the till and at the pumps. That's the right thing to do.
OK, Simon Greaves, thank you very much, former Labour councillor there. Let us know at home what you think. I think this sounds a lot like communism, but there you go, trying to dictate prices. What do you think is going to happen if you start saying a loaf of bread has to be £1.50? Well, the prices on other goods will go up, won't they, to cover it?
Well, I mean, if a business can't set the prices that the business wants to set, then that's the government sort of running the business instead of the company. I mean, I can't imagine that companies would stay in business for that long.
I'd love Rachel Reeves to be opening up, you know, government Sainsbury's.
It worked well in the Soviet Union, didn't it? And in Cuba.
No queues at all. No shortages at all.
Well, goodness me, I hope we don't get to that point. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more still to come. Yeah, Boris Johnson brands the easing of Russian oil sanctions a betrayal of Ukraine. Is he right? But after the break. MPs hand the Prime Minister the blueprints for how to enforce digital ID, claiming his attempts so far have been a fiasco. All of that and more to come. Your GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 25 minutes past 1. Now, a group of MPs on the Home Affairs Committee say that Sir Keir Starmer's digital ID rollout announcement fell nothing short of a fiasco.
Yes, in September last year, the Prime Minister announced digital ID, all of a sudden, really. He said it would be mandatory for proving the right to work.
I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
But it turned out it wasn't as simple as that. No, months later, a U-turn after how unpopular this policy turned out to be. Now, while the digital right-to-work checks will be mandatory, they won't have to be used through digital ID. There could be other ways to show that you have the right to work, as we currently do with ordinary dead tree paper.
Ordinary dead tree paper. Well, joining us now is Director of Government Innovation Policy at the Tony Blair Institute, Alexander Ayasad. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that digital ID is something that the Tony Blair Institute has spoken a lot about, pioneered perhaps, it's fair to say. But this Home Affairs Committee report is damning. I mean, they say totally weak policy development, total rush to announce plans, doomed to fail, destroyed public confidence from the outset. The proposal came out of the blue. Alarm, uncertainty, lack of prep, poor communication. What went wrong? Besides that.
Strong voice from the committee, and fundamentally with a policy of that magnitude, because if you get it right, it can make life for Britons much, much better, much more convenient. It is important that you get the communication piece right. I think it's difficult to argue that everything went right when it comes to this point. But what we have seen is that it is a live, evolving debate, and Britons were prepared for digital ID before the announcement. We have seen support drop in the immediate aftermath, and we saw a very live, very public debate about this, both here and elsewhere. But what we've also now found is, when we went out to the public in January, we found there is now, again, majority support. It's softer, but it is majority support for digital ID, with +6 positive. So we have 43% expressed their support for digital ID in January, and just 37% expressed their opposition to digital ID.
Alexander,
so why have the debate happened?
Do you think that's because the government has stopped talking about it? Is there this slight worry now that almost any policy, whether it's one that you're in favour of or one you're against, if it comes out of Keir Starmer's lips, suddenly it just collapses in terms of public support?
I think digital ID was the one policy that has real cut-through with the public and spurred this kind of really live debate. But also we now see that even though support dropped immediately after the announcement, when there was uncertainty, and I do agree with the committee, there could have been better communication of detail that was behind the policy, which went out on Gov.uk, went out from departments, but didn't form a big part of the plan.
Do you think that it's because of the U-turn that there has been some increase in support? Because originally it was going to be mandatory, and now it's going to be voluntary, and that seems like a significant shift.
So the polling that we did in January was before the change was announced. I think it came through because people understood better what digital ID was because of the public debate that we had. It's much better to have debates about these kinds of really important policies than to just do them in the background and hope no one notices.
But hang on, didn't support for digital ID go down once people had heard about it and had a bit of a debate? Isn't this all a bit patronising, that sort of, you know, if we sort of frame it in a slightly different way, or had we sort of spoken about it for a little bit longer, or had someone communicating it slightly better, that the public would take a dramatically different view? Perhaps they actually did think about it, and that's what made them go, no, actually, we don't want this.
So support increased between September, immediately after the announcement, and January. And that was the time when the petition came out. And when, as a result of the petition, we had these very public debates about what should digital ID be, what should it not do? How can it combat illegal migration or help combat illegal migration or not? How can it help public services or not? And what we also see in these debates is that when people have a better knowledge of digital ID and what it does in other countries, support also increases.
OK, we don't have that much more time. We've talked about the process of this political debate. Let's talk about the actuality of what digital ID is for, then. We don't have much time, so the sort of elevator pitch, if you will. Why have this?
The elevator pitch is it helps you prove that you are who you say you are. It helps you prove that certain things about you are true. And it helps you access public services on that basis without having to repeat yourself again and again and again and spend hours filling out forms telling the government something it might already know. It also means that government can target support much better because it can understand, and you are in control with the digital ID, of sharing that data with the relevant departments.
A lot of people might be worried about some sort of central repository of data.
There is no central repository of data. There is no new data being created here, no central database. There will be an app, there will be other means of accessing it for those who don't want to use mobile phones. that allows you to see what information might already be held about you by different departments, that allows you to exercise control over when to share it with others in order to access services better.
OK, I think fundamentally if the public had more confidence in the government as a whole and trust in the government as a whole, they might be a little bit more pro it. I think that's the issue here, isn't it? Why would you want mandatory digital ID if you don't trust the government who's handling it all? But Alexander, thank you very much for putting up the case for digital ID there, Director of Government Innovation Policy at the Tony Blair Institute.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's plenty more still to come on today's programme, but first, let's catch up on those very latest news headlines.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Sir Keir Starmer has paused a planned 5p increase in fuel duty, extending the freeze until the end of the year. Fuel duty had been due to rise between September and March next year. The Prime Minister says the extension is due to the conflict in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister defended the UK loosening sanctions on Russian oil. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch earlier said watering down sanctions is insane. The Treasury is reportedly encouraging major supermarkets to introduce voluntary price caps on everyday essentials as food inflation climbed to 3.7% in April. That's as the latest UK inflation rate was announced today. It's fallen to 2.8% in the year to April. That's a 0.5 percentage point fall from 3.3% recorded in the 12 months to March. And an historic day in sports as Arsenal win the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. It's after Manchester City drew 1-1 at Bournemouth. It ends a run of 3 straight second-place finishes with the trophy lift set to take place on Sunday at Selhurst Park. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, thank you, Tatiana. Lots more still to come.
Yes, Boris Johnson brands the easing of Russian oil sanctions a betrayal of Ukraine. Is he right?
All of that and indeed more. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi there. Warmer, sunnier and drier weather is on the way, but it's going to take its time over the next couple of days. A lot of cloud today, some showers around, not as many as the last couple of days before it turns brighter and warmer. Low pressure still with us, but it's moving northwards, and as a result, high pressure builds from the south, starting to settle things down. Like yesterday, however, still a number of showers around, this time more focused towards the north, especially northern Scotland, where they'll be heavy with some rumbles of thunder, perhaps some hail as well. But elsewhere across the UK, the showers fewer, not as heavy compared with recent days. A better chance of drier and brighter interludes breaking out across the south, and as a result, temperatures reaching the high teens or even low 20s in some spots. Now, that brighter weather is migrating northwards, and by the end of the afternoon, actually plenty of sunshine across many parts of Scotland, although some more prolonged rain is going to affect Orkney and frequent showers into the far north and northwest. Northern Ireland, mostly cloudy, 1 or 2 spots of rain. England, Wales, mixed amounts of cloud, some showers about as well, but these are tending to fade as we go into the evening and overnight. Clear spells for many northern and eastern districts overnight, but building cloud towards the west with some outbreaks of rain into Northern Ireland, western fringes of Britain, and those outbreaks of rain turning persistent as the night goes on. Towards the east and southeast, clear spells, but wherever you are, it's going to be another mild night with temperatures in some places staying up in the teens. Now, we start off Thursday with very mixed conditions across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving across the northern half of the country, fizzling away as it moves towards the northeast of Scotland, followed by some patchy rain and a lot of cloud. But it's mostly dry and increasingly sunny towards the south. As a result, temperatures rising up into the low or even mid-20s.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Speed restrictions of 30 miles per hour are indefinitely in place on the Britannia Bridge on the A55. In Buckinghamshire, M40 northbound traffic between junctions 2 and 4 is delayed due to a collision, with one lane closed until about 2:30. In Surrey, the M25 clockwise between junctions 6 and 7 has one lane closed due to a broken down vehicle, with normal traffic expected shortly after 1:30. And on the trains, major disruption is reported on Grand Central services between Peterborough and London, and Great Northern trains running between Peterborough, Royston and London. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
GB loyalty points are here. They're our way of saying thank you for spending time with GB News. Through commenting on your say, voting in You Decide polls and shaping the debate, you can earn GB loyalty points. Unlock rewards, reach milestones and climb leaderboards. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be part of them. Get started by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/loyalty points.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It is now 1:37. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Yes, Sir Keir Starmer came under fire at PMQs a little earlier, following the decision to ease some sanctions on Russian oil.
Yes, well, Kemi Badenoch accused the Prime Minister of choosing to buy dirty Russian oil, which she claims is being used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Indeed, hard to see how it isn't.
Now, it was only a few months ago, wasn't it, that the Prime Minister insisted sanctions against Russia must not be eased. Take a listen.
It's really important that we're clear and consistent that Putin can't be the one who benefits from the conflict in Iran, whether that's oil prices or the dropping of sanctions.
Well, now the government has issued a general trade licence for products made from Russian oil. So this will be Russian oil exported to a third country, refined into an oil product, like jet fuel, for instance, and then imported to Britain. Well, there's now an explicit licence being granted for that by the British government, and it comes into force on the 20th of May. That's today. It's of indefinite duration and shall be periodically reviewed by the Secretary of State. That's from the official announcement from this government.
It's interesting, isn't it? He says that actually we're going to get tougher on sanctions, and that the only reason this particular sanction is being eased is because we've got this brilliant, better, new selection of sanctions to bring in at the same time.
Which is strange.
He says the Tories did it before, but did they?
The previous government brought in new sanctions. I cannot find a single example of the previous government lifting a single sanction on Ukrainian oil or gas when they applied new sanctions. And there was a ramping up of sanctions. I can't find a single example. In fact, other journalists have looked into this as well. The issuing of new licences for the import of Russian oil products, that did not occur under the previous government after the invasion of Ukraine. This seems like it is the first time that a formal general trade licence has been issued for the import of Russian oil and gas products.
But you know what really winds me up, if we're just thinking about the domestic context, is that Aberdeen has been absolutely hammered by this government and successive governments, to be fair. They weren't exactly best pleased with the Conservatives with all of their regulations and windfall taxes on the industry. But even so, this government will legislate to ban all new oil and gas exploration in our own country, up in Scotland, and then say, actually, we'll ease a few of the sanctions on Russian dirty oil.
I mean, the most extraordinary thing
It does not
here
make sense.
is that we're still talking about whether we use Rosebank and Jackdaw. Rosebank is an oil field in the North Sea, Jackdaw a gas field in the North Sea. Do you know when those were discovered, first discovered, those oil and gas fields? Rosebank, 2004, Jackdaw, 2005. 21 and 22 years ago. People who
I love how you answer your own question.
People who can now vote in elections weren't born when these oil and gas fields were discovered. And the last 21 or 22 years have been spent by lawyers, politicians and regulators going backwards and forwards over whether or not we can extract our own oil and gas. We've spent a lifetime, many people's lifetimes, just talking about whether we extract the oil that we know is there. It's extraordinary.
It is, and we'd benefit in a lot of ways doing it ourselves. But Keir Starmer and PMQs did mention something else right at the end,
Oh, yeah?
with a little smile on his face. Something about Arsenal winning their first Premier League title in 22 years.
Since the discovery of the Rosebank oil fields.
You're such an anorak. Manchester City were held to a 1-1 draw at Bournemouth after that. It is the first time the Gunners have been champions since 2004. Yes, Sam Francis is there outside the Emirates for us. Sam, tell us the mood.
Well, good afternoon to you both. I was going to say, if you haven't heard already, but you've just done it for me, Arsenal are now the undisputed champions of England. And in fact, they didn't win it here last night. They didn't even have to kick a ball. Manchester City, the team that have haunted the Gunners for years and years, finally came to the end of their road at Bournemouth last night. City needed to win that game in order to keep their title race alive. But they fell behind, then they equalised, ultimately ended in a draw, leaving them with no chance to win the title for themselves. That puts Arsenal 4 points at the top of the league, with one game still to play this Sunday against Crystal Palace, where they will also lift that trophy finally after a 22-year wait. That takes place on Sunday, with celebrations expected across the capital and indeed up and down the country. And we also saw celebrations, huge celebrations, thousands of people gathering here at the Emirates Stadium last night. As you can see around me, people slowly starting to gather, with anticipation building for yet another night of celebration. And earlier I managed to speak to just a few of the fans who gathered in the early hours waiting for that celebration tonight, to share just what it means for them.
It means everything, man. Honestly, man, the last time we won the league, I was 11 years old. 11 years old. And now look, I'm a big old 33-year-old man, almost. I can't believe that I'm actually welling up even talking about this. Oh my God, it means everything. All the heartbreak when we lost in the Champions League final, everything. Now look.
Well, I started supporting Arsenal when I was 12. Now I'm 34, so it's been quite long, to be honest, and just feels amazing, and just happened to be here in London as well, so enjoying the vibes, enjoying everything. It's been amazing.
He was just over the moon. Everything was, I mean, he threw stuff, everything was everywhere. He was sorting everything out, the pillows everywhere, and I'm surprised our little girl didn't wake up, because he was absolutely mental.
It means a lot to us. 22 years we waited for this. It's been long enough. And we're going to be waiting outside the ground. As soon as the game is over, we've all been told we've got to get the train back to the Emirates here, and they're going to go up there, the team is.
Champion! Champion! Ole, ole, ole!
Well, symbolically, this isn't just huge for English football. Arsenal haven't just won the Premier League. They have put an end to Manchester City's rule of the race. But fans here are now actually dreaming of a possible double victory, with the Champions League set to take place against Paris Saint-Germain next Sunday. Now, though, attention is still firmly focused on this victory, the Premier League trophy, set to be lifted on Sunday. But for now, this dog is not quite living up to the expectations of a celebration. He's taking a well-deserved break.
Fantastic. Sam Francis, thanks indeed for being there amongst all those gooners for us, and we'll be back with you, of course, later throughout the programme.
Oh my God, they were so happy. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up. Yes, more on that astonishing PMQs. Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of taking dirty Russian oil.
But now, if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, perhaps you'd like to fly on a plane that will soon be using Russian jet fuel. Well, here's the weather in Europe.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. If you're heading off to Europe, well, high pressure is in charge, bringing plenty of warm sunshine around. Still a few showers, and it is cloudy across Madeira and the Canary Islands through Thursday. Lots of sunshine to be had across Spain, Portugal and France, across Italy and across Greece. That's where we'll see some showers bubbling up through the afternoon. Otherwise, temperatures into the mid to high 20s. That theme continues as we go through the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's I wrote it as a chronicle of the last years of my parents' lives, and my mother in particular, her struggle coping with my father's dementia, and actually the whole family's. And they were lucky to start with in that they were well into the 90s before they actually lost their independence, and they were in relatively good health. But they also were not aware of their growing need in any way whatsoever, and they were reluctant to give up their independence, as we can imagine, and we could see just how much need they had. So this sort of tender dance started between them letting go and us stepping forward as a family. And I remember one incident in particular when I pointed out to my father that that somebody had smashed the wind mirrors on their car. And his reply was, it doesn't matter, dear, we don't use them anyway. And it was this sort of sense of denial, and the book chronicles this gradual development of trying to help them while still respecting their dignity.
Yes. One of the poems that you want to read us demonstrates that.
Yes.
Would you read it for us?
Yes, of course. We've been here since dawn, cleaning to make the house presentable for the buyers who are back for one last look. We had Dad holed up in the kitchen, but he's broken out and against all instruction is telling the surveyor, it does have its problems. He was the same at their interview for the retirement village when he kept asking over and over, is there an emergency doctor on site? He scuppered the last sale, talking about the dormouse they'd found paddling in the toilet and how, even though they'd fished it out with a colander and laid it on the grass, it had died anyway.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 2. Now, Keir Starmer, in case you haven't realised, faced his first Prime Minister's questions since Labour's local election bloodbath.
Yes, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, attacked him over his refusal to grant new North Sea oil and gas licences at the same time as lifting sanctions on Russian oil.
He is so deep in the bunker, Mr. Speaker. He's importing sanctioned Russian oil. He's nationalising steel. He's imposing price controls in the supermarket. Yeah. It's like the Soviets won.
Feisty. Well, for those who don't know, after every Prime Minister's questions, there's an opportunity for journalists to go and ask questions of the Prime Minister's political team. And our very own political correspondent was there today. Olivia, you've been speaking with the people behind Keir Starmer, the wizard behind the curtain, the people who make him tick. What did they have to say?
Well, it was a fascinating lobby meeting, and they wheeled in a civil servant who's in charge of these sanctions, which is something which I've never seen before. So clearly they knew that this was going to be a political hot potato. Essentially, what they're saying is that they're not taking away sanctions. This is real political spin for you. Actually, they're adding in more sanctions on the creation of Russian drones, for example, and actually this is going to make things worse for Russia. But when we journalists dug in a little bit, it turns out that what they're doing, they say that what they're doing is now phasing in sanctions in a slower way than was originally announced in 2025. And so when you actually ask, yes, there is a change from the original government policy, then the Prime Minister's chief spokesman was asked why the government wasn't just being honest about this and saying that in reaction to changing circumstances, in reaction to the market changing, etc., they are loosening Russian sanctions. Well, they didn't really like that question, but essentially that is exactly what is happening. The line that they were determined to hammer home is that actually things are going to get worse for Russia and that these new sanctions that Britain will be imposing on drones, etc., is going to make life difficult for Putin's regime. That sort of bypasses the point that most of what we import from Russia is oil and gas. I'll let viewers make of it what they will. Is this going to make life easier for Russia or harder?
Well, quite. I mean, Kemi Badenoch used the word processology to describe how Keir Starmer was trying to spin this.
I thought that's going to be a word that comes up again and again. I think she's pretty pleased with that.
Processology. She was pretty good today, I must say, in terms of landing her point. But what will be concerning a lot of people at the moment is the hypocrisy, really, perhaps, or just the mismatch between stopping oil and gas in our own country, specifically Aberdeen, and then getting oil off the Russians. How do they manage to square that one?
Well, that was the very point that Kemi Badenoch made, and it does seem very strange. I think we might be hearing some announcements soon on gas licences in the North Sea, but the government is committed to not allowing new licences. These are licences, the ones which are the two licences which are currently being considered have actually been in the government in tray, as it were, since 2023. So it does still beg very, very big questions. And it'll be fascinating, of course, to see what happens if there is a change of leadership, if we do get lots and lots of ifs here, but if we do get an Andy Burnham premiership with Ed Miliband as Chancellor, what would that do to the energy market? Ed Miliband is the biggest net zero zealot in the cabinet. Rumour has it that Keir Starmer wanted to get rid of him at the last reshuffle, but was unable to do so. What would happen if he were promoted even further? Really, really interesting questions for the next few months.
It seems to me really obvious what's happened behind the scenes. They've looked at the price of oil and gas and thought, yikes, we don't want family holidays to become much, much more expensive. So they've gone, what can we do? Oh no, we're going to have to import some Russian oil and gas. How do we make up for this fact? Let's expedite new sanctions, but not on oil and gas, on something completely different, on drones. So you've got lifting sanctions on one side of the ledger and imposing completely different sanctions on the other side of the ledger to try and muddy the water.
Well, absolutely. And you are a political genius, but I don't think it takes political genius to work out what the government was doing there. And I don't think it's going to wash with very many people. I do think...
we're going to have to leave it there. I'm terribly sorry we've come to the end of the hour. Olivia, hopefully we'll speak to you again very soon. It's Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Do keep your views coming in. We've got a lot more on the show coming up.
Absolutely. And do stay with us for the next hour. We're expecting to hear Wes Streeting's resignation statement. Will he tear into the Prime Minister in the House of Commons? That's next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there. Warmer, sunnier and drier weather is on the way, but it's going to take its time over the next couple of days. A lot of cloud today, some showers around, not as many as the last couple of days, before it turns brighter and warmer. Low pressure still with us, but it's moving northwards, and as a result, high pressure builds from the south, starting to settle things down. Like yesterday, however, still a number of showers around, this time more focused towards the north, especially northern Scotland, where they'll be heavy with some rumbles of thunder, perhaps some hail as well. But elsewhere across the UK, the showers fewer, not as heavy compared with recent days. A better chance of drier and brighter interludes breaking out across the south, and as a result, temperatures reaching the high teens or even low 20s in some spots. Now, that brighter weather is migrating northwards, and by the end of the afternoon, actually plenty of sunshine across many parts of Scotland, although some more prolonged rain is going to affect Orkney and frequent showers into the far north and northwest. Northern Ireland, mostly cloudy, one or two spots of rain. England, Wales, mixed amounts of cloud, some showers about as well, but these are tending to fade as we go into the evening and overnight. Clear spells for many northern and eastern districts overnight, but building cloud towards the west with some outbreaks of rain into Northern Ireland, western fringes of Britain, and those outbreaks of rain turning persistent as the night goes on. Towards the east and southeast, clear spells, but wherever you are, it's going to be another mild night with temperatures in some places staying up in the teens. Now, we start off Thursday with very mixed conditions across the UK. Outbreaks of rain moving across the northern half of the country, fizzling away as it moves towards the northeast of Scotland, followed by some patchy rain and a lot of cloud. But it's mostly dry and increasingly sunny towards the south. As a result, temperatures rising up into the low or even mid-20s.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's a totally tax-free £76,543.21 in cash to be won. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having over £6,000 extra to spend each month for a whole year. You could spend it on a bucket list holiday, treats for all of the family, or just save it for a rainy day. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of May. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
He is now choosing to buy dirty Russian oil. That money will be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't he ashamed?
The only people that benefit when we play party politics in here on Russia and Ukraine is Putin.
Well, there's a taste of a furious clash at PMQs earlier. Kemi Badenoch accusing Sir Keir Starmer of buying dirty Russian oil after lifting some sanctions on the country. The Prime Minister insists the exemptions are temporary and part of a tougher sanctions package, but critics say Labour is backtracking on Ukraine. It's a far cry from the united front with Ukraine last year.
no lifting of any kind of sanctions until Russia will stop this war.
Stings, not lifting any kind of sanctions. Yikes. Well, elsewhere, the government has scrapped plans to hike fuel duty in September after pressure from drivers and rising costs linked to the Middle East crisis. Is it another Labour U-turn?
It certainly was expected, but the timing is unusual outside of a budget. But relief there for motorists. This 5% increase in fuel duty won't go ahead in August, delayed until December and possibly after that.
Rachel Reeves is reportedly pushing supermarkets to cap food prices as inflation fears grow. Could this be a dangerous return to 1970s style economics?
Elsewhere, a grooming gang has been jailed for a combined 277 years after the abuse of vulnerable girls. 20 people were convicted following a major West Yorkshire police investigation spanning years.
Right. What are we doing to help the children?
Come in, let's have a chat.
Oh dear, and why was Gemma Collins brought in to talk with the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson? We'll go through that rather bizarre video later this hour.
Now, we are expecting any minute for the former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, to deliver his resignation statement from the Green benches. Christopher Hope, you're with us here. These are big, big moments. Famously, these have brought down Prime Ministers before.
That's right. Geoffrey Howe against Margaret Thatcher. Think about that. He said it's like playing cricket and going out and finding your captain's broken your bat before facing a fast bowler. This is a different order. The reason why is this. We know Wes Streeting has gone. We know he left us a very difficult letter for the Prime Minister last Thursday for us all to read. But what Wes Streeting is trying to do is to get 81 MPs to support his leadership campaign. He's around 40, we think, according to reports. So what he says to MPs will have a bearing on the leadership, and that's why there's not much more jeopardy. He's not just leaving government to go off and look after his vegetable patch. He wants to take the top job off the PM. So this is the first chance we're going to see of him setting out his stall for other MPs around him to back him, and it's a real moment.
And this will be in the House of Commons. And will it be well attended?
Well, he'll certainly donut all his pals around him, like Rosie Writing.
A little crowd around him.
So on the camera, it might look packed, but hopefully with the camera, we don't control what picture we see at GBNews. That's controlled by Parliament, but they should pull back and see how many Labour MPs are listening to this.
Because a lot of MPs dash off after PMQs in any case, don't they?
They do, and if it weren't for an urgent question ordered by the Speaker about the Russian oil sanctions issue, it would have happened straight after PMQs, making it quite hard for the PM, Sir Keir Starmer, to leave. It would be rude to walk out on this resignation statement. In the old days, that statement was listened to in silence by the PM. That won't happen now. We don't expect him to be back in the chamber. But the convention is he'll speak for 10, 12 minutes and no one can interrupt. Yeah. So wherever he's saying must be accepted and listened to. There'll be people on the front bench and see how they react too. So it'll be a real moment here, not forgetting, aside from all the news the government's generating about the cut in fuel duty and Russian oil sanctions, there's a whole separate story developing all the time about the future of the Prime Minister.
Big opportunity for Wes Streeting.
It really is, yeah.
So we'll keep you up to date on all of that. Christopher Hope, we'll speak to you in just 1 second. Please do get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Get your opinions in. But shall we get to the headlines with Tatiana?
Emily, thank you. The top stories this hour. Sir Keir Starmer has paused a planned 5p increase in fuel duty, extending the freeze until the end of the year. Fuel duty had been due to rise between September and March of next year. The Prime Minister says the extension is due to the conflict in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister defended the UK loosening sanctions on Russian oil, saying the strong new package of sanctions announced go well beyond existing measures. But Tory leader Kemi Badenoch earlier said watering down sanctions is insane.
None of the existing sanctions are being lifted in any way. So this is not less pressure on Russia, it is more pressure on Russia. More pressure than there was the day before yesterday, more pressure than there was under the last government. What is happening is that those sanctions are being phased in a way which was used by the last government when they introduced new sanctions. We bothered to do the processology and work out what we were doing and supported it because we could see that it put more pressure on Russia. Similar methods are used by other countries. They are done because of the impact on the market and to protect UK consumers.
I've heard this tone before. This is the same tone he used during the Mandelson scandal, and they were all cheering, and then it turned out that he was wrong, wrong, wrong. He says that other countries are doing this. The EU is not doing this. Let me make it clear. I know it hurts him to hear it. He is now choosing to buy dirty Russian oil. That money will be used to fund the killing of Ukrainian soldiers. Isn't he ashamed?
Liberal Democrats leader Sir Ed Davies shared his concerns and says Ukraine needs the government's support.
Well, it shows how idiotic Trump's war in Iran has been. It's hitting our economy, it's hitting the cost of living, and it's quite outrageous that the Conservatives and Reform cheerleaded for Donald Trump's war. We've always been opposed to it, and the simplest way to sort this out is to end that war. But on this latest proposal, I'm really worried because we need to support Ukraine in their fight against Russia. And I think we should be looking at a whole range of ideas that we push forward for quite some time. For example, seizing Russian assets so we can help our country and help Ukraine.
The Treasury is reportedly encouraging major supermarkets to introduce voluntary price caps on everyday essentials as food inflation climbed to 3.7% in April. Under the proposed scheme, retailers would limit the cost of staple items such as bread, milk and cheese. Bread, milk and eggs, rather. In return, the government could offer incentives, including relaxed packaging requirements and delays to healthy food regulations. Meanwhile, Marks & Spencer's has warned that supermarkets are being held back by a triple whammy of headwinds, including higher taxes, red tape and disruption caused by the Iran war. Stuart Machin, the chief executive of M&S, highlighted the problems facing grocers in a trading update today, which revealed that profits fell by almost £150 million last year. He issued the warning less than 24 hours after it emerged that the Chancellor was pressuring retailers to start capping food prices, prompting a furious response from senior figures in the industry. Meanwhile, inflation has fallen to 2.8% in the year to April. That's a 0.5 percentage point fall from the 3.3% recorded in the 12 months to March. Economists had widely expected inflation to ease, but only to 3% on the back of a lower energy price cap that came into force on the 1st of April. Ofgem had lowered its energy price cap by 7% for the average household using both electric and gas, which was driven by the government measures to reduce bills. Elsewhere, an historic day in sports as Arsenal win the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. That was the moment the Arsenal squad reacted to the win after Man City drew 1-1 at Bournemouth. It ends a run of 3 straight second-place finishes, with the trophy lift set to take place on Sunday at Selhurst Park. The Prime Minister was asked about the win as he left 4 Prime Minister's questions this morning.
Arsenal champions of England, Prime Minister! Yes. Did you celebrate winning the league? Yes.
Meanwhile, elsewhere, MPs have written to Channel 4 and Ofcom with serious concerns about their response to the allegations of rape and sexual assault on Married at First Sight UK. Dame Caroline Dinage, chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, earlier wrote to Channel 4 and Ofcom with serious concerns about their response to, quote, the horrifying allegations about the show. Channel 4 Chief Executive Priya Dogra has said she is deeply sorry for the distress caused to Married at First Sight UK participants who alleged they were raped and sexually assaulted by their partners. The Met Police are encouraging anyone who believes they've been a victim of sexual assault after participating on the reality TV show to come forward. The 3 individuals accused deny allegations. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, here's a look at the finance.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.34 and €1.16. The price of gold, £3,353. And the FTSE 100 is at 10,448 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 2:10. Now Keir Starmer faced his first Prime Minister's questions since Labour's local election bloodbath.
Yes, the Conservative leader Kevin Badenoch attacked the Prime Minister over his refusal to grant new North Sea oil and gas licences at the same time as lifting some sanctions on Russian oil.
He is so deep in the bunker, Mr. Speaker. He's importing sanctioned Russian oil. He's nationalising steel. He's imposing price controls in the supermarket. It's like the Soviets won.
Punchy. Well, in the next half hour, we'll be hearing from the former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, following his dramatic resignation last week.
Well, we've got our political editor Christopher Hope here to fill us in on all the latest. It's been another dramatic day in politics so far. It's only 2 o'clock. What can we expect this afternoon?
Well, we can expect this pitch to Labour backbenchers from someone who hopes to be Prime Minister. Now, he's not rated by members. According to a survey of 700 Labour members, 4% of people want Wes Streeting. Keir Starmer's on 31%. I think Andy Burnham towards 50% or so. So he's in the box seat if he can get past the voters, of course, of a by-election in the north. He might be delayed in taking over because there'll be another role to be filled in Greater Manchester. So we're building up. There's a head of steam now. I think the train has left the station on the fact there will be a leadership challenge towards Keir Starmer. The question is, who will it be? May not be Andy Burnham, so who from the left might it be? It could be, of course, Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper, Al Carnes. All these individuals are put up, but no one really is Keir Starmer has three times the support of all those candidates, not including Andy Burnham. So much risk here.
A lot of risk, and it looks likely that Keir Starmer will contest any race, and he has an automatic space on the ballot. He doesn't need 81 MPs to get onto that ballot.
He has incumbency on his side.
A bit like Jeremy Corbyn in 2016.
Yes, but not being Prime Minister at the same time.
Yeah, Labour Party leader.
Labour Party leader at the same time then. He is different, Keir Starmer. He gave an interview on Monday to reporters. Normally with Keir Starmer, he's quite friendly behind the scenes, chatting away. The camera comes on and he leaves his personality leaves the room, and you're left with this kind of carapace talking back at you. But something about him, he's smiling, he's relaxed. Whether he's got one foot on the beach like a footballer leaving a football club, to quote Martin Dawdy, my colleague, or whether it's just he feels here's a chance. I've got to get the stabilisers off. I've got to try and fight for this job I've wanted for a long time. That may be why he's announced a fuel duty freeze until December today. That was meant to be, we thought, Rachel Reeve's announcement tomorrow, for example. And in fact, we have got a clip now of what he said in House of Commons.
And I can announce today that we're giving our hauliers a 12-month road tax holiday, helping to keep prices down. And we're backing drivers by extending the freeze in fuel duty for the rest of the year. This is possible because of the decisions taken by the Chancellor, making us the fastest growing economy in the G7, and she will set out further action tomorrow. Mr. Speaker, this is not our war, but while the parties opposite wanted to jump into it, Labour will always protect working people.
So a big relief there for drivers. We won't see fuel duty go up by 5p at the end of August. That may happen at the end of December, but by then there'll be another budget to happen from whoever is Chancellor, and that'll allow them to set the case for any future increases. Also, good news for hauliers, as they said there, a 12-month holiday on road tax, capped at £1, not £600. So good news for hauliers. And the big drama from PMQs is why on earth is the government allowing Russia to sell oil into international markets again? It's defended as a temporary ratcheting up or changes of the sanctions system and to relieve pressure on air fuel duty. But, correctly, I think Kemi Badenoch said, well, why are we not allowing our own oil and gas to be pumped out? Why are we handing money, frankly, through trading oil and gas to Russia?
And his answer to that, he didn't really want to answer the question about Aberdeen, about our own licences, about our own oil and gas, did he? He said something sort of wishy-washy about how renewables are the future.
Yes, which he says to insulate us against the changes, fluctuations in the oil and gas price. Now, he would say if we allow more drilling in the Rosebank field or the Jackdaw field, that simply the price of that oil and gas is set by the uncertainty internationally, so it wouldn't bring any prices down in the UK. That is disputed by people who are in the sector. They say because it's nearer to the UK, it would be cheaper to get it to landfall in the UK, and we could deal with it that way.
And we'd get the jobs and the tax
and
anyway.
The jobs and the tax, as the SNP and Scots are saying. And so we're buying gas from Norway, more from the North Sea, which we have a stake in.
Or even more expensively than buying gas from Norway, we're buying LNG from the United States, where they pump out the gas and then they freeze down the gas into a liquid form, compress it, transport it halfway around the world, where they then have to warm it up again and turn it back into gas. All of these processes take money.
Yes.
It's much more expensive to buy LNG than it is just to pump gas through a pipeline, as we would from the North Sea.
And it all costs fuel and fuel miles, energy miles. It all costs money. It must eat into our net zero target. All that travel you're describing and that process you're describing, Tom. I thought Kemi Badenoch made some good points though about the Soviet bunker the PM's in. You know, nationalising British Steel. That's coming up, of course. Price controls may or may not be imposed on some foods in the supermarkets. So I think that did connect, I think, with MPs.
Yeah, I think it's very concerning for a lot of people, this sort of desire, it seems, to try and control prices rather than try and fix, you know, the supply side or the underlying reasons why things are high.
It's like they don't understand what a price is.
No.
I mean, it's as if they think that a price is something that's just plucked out of the air. A price is a response to the amount of stuff there is versus the number of people who want to buy that
It's
stuff.
socialism, though.
You can't just ignore the reality. I mean, the reason why houses have got very expensive is because there are less houses than the number of people who want to buy houses. It's supply and
but we
demand.
can just cap
It's
the
the
price.
same with food. If we
all
cap
houses have to be £100,000.
They have to be rationed somehow. And in a capitalist democracy, what we do is we ration them by price. If you don't ration them by price, you have to ration them by queue or by favour or by who's closest to the government, who's close to the Politburo, who's going to hand out gifts to their mates. I mean, honestly, how else do we think we're going to ration this stuff in this country?
But I probably should have spent some more time schmoozing Rachel Reeves.
Well, maybe. You're on a Christmas card list, suddenly you get a lot of free food.
Anyway, Christopher Hope, thank you very much. We'll move on for now, but we'll be back with you hopefully in a little bit. Because, yes, this price capping nonsense. Rachel Reeves is reportedly pushing supermarkets to cap the price of basic food items like milk, like a loaf of bread, like eggs perhaps, fearing the rise of inflation.
But Stuart Machin, the boss of Marks & Spencer, warns that retailers are already facing a triple whammy of higher taxes, red tape and global instability, as critics warn of a return to 1970s-style price controls that tanked the economy.
Or indeed neo-Soviet, as some others have said. We're joined now by farmer Charles Godby. Charles, thank you very much for joining us. There was no mention really of farmers in the discussion about potential price caps on supermarkets, but that would have quite a big impact on you.
Yeah, there's never mention of farmers when it comes to food and food production. I think the government especially seems to forget who's feeding them and where their food comes from. Because retailers are saying this is going to impact them massively. But let's be honest, we've only got to look at the fairness that we see in the supply chain, that farmers are the ones that are going to be impacted massively. We are going to feel the hit of this at a time when farmers are struggling to make any profit, if any at all. So this is going to have damning consequences on farming and food production in the UK, but also on food prices and food inflation in the long term.
I mean, it does seem like the Treasury just hasn't sort of thought through what actually is going to happen if they demand that a supermarket fixes a price below the market rate of that price. We know why the prices are going up: the cost of energy, the cost of employing people, the taxes that are being imposed on farmers and many other people through the supply chain. But ultimately, the question here becomes, what then happens to the amount that farmers get paid? I mean, clearly the supermarkets have the whip hand in this relationship. If they're forced by the government to cap a price below the market rate, it's farmers who are going to be paid even less than they are now.
Absolutely. So for a number of years now, we've had the supermarket adjudicators, which are supposed to oversee fairness within the supply chain. They've been about as much use as a chocolate fireguard. We've not seen any improvements for farmers and suppliers in the retail. So basically, this is just giving licence to the supermarkets and larger retailers to put more pressure on primary producers and on farmers to actually drive down the price that they're being paid. And that's going to put farmers out of production, out of business, and we're going to become more reliant on imports.
I mean,
and
Charles,
when
we can see
the cost of living
Charles, sorry to interrupt. We can see the cows behind you when we see you on the screen. There we go. Can you let us know, for those who don't know, sort of what are your margins like on milk? So do you sell to supermarkets yourself at your farm? How much do you get from the likes of Sainsbury's, whatever supermarket it is?
So, no, we're not a direct line, so we're not directly selling to supermarkets, but most of the milk for the UK is going through supermarkets and the larger processors. So at the minute, yeah, we're getting around about 35 pence per litre on our milk. And there's no profit in dairy production at the minute. There's no profit in any farming really at the minute. If we look, you're talking in general of anywhere between a 0.5 and 1% return on capital invested. And that is no return at all. And as I was trying to say earlier, we're going to become more reliant on imported produce. And if we look at what's happened historically, even in our recent history, the start of COVID, the start of the Ukraine pandemic, we saw empty supermarket shelves and we saw massive price increases in food inflation. And most of that, if you look at food inflation, it's driven by imported produce. It's nearly twice as much as what homegrown produce is. So we need to really build on our self-sufficiency and food security in this UK to stop future food inflation and to be able to feed the population.
It is just shocking to hear you say there. I mean, like, we can hear the cows behind you, but you're saying, I mean, I know that the hours that farmers work, how early you guys get up in the morning, how much you put into this, and then to say you're making next to no profit at all, that the business is barely surviving as things stand now, let alone what's coming down the track. I mean, it must be really worrying for you.
It is a massive concern. We are at the point in the UK where food production is economically barely viable now. And going on, I can't see with this government, the policies that they're putting in place as well at the minute, food production is not on their agenda at all. Just look at the land use framework that they've been discussing and putting in place now. That's looking at taking anywhere between 11 and 19% of good farmland out of production. Nature, for rewilding and for energy production. We have to take food seriously in this country because we're an island nation, let's not forget that. And it only takes the slightest geopolitical murmur, what's happening in Iran. Look at the effect that's having on our food prices. And food is our security.
And not just...
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask about food inflation, because a lot of people look at the sort of figure of about 3% on food inflation and think, hang on, my basket is going up by more than that. I mean, do you expect to see more inflation coming down the line when it comes to supermarket spend?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt. And actually, ag inflation, so our input costs are going up far higher than food inflation. It's costing us more to produce than we are selling it for. But when you look at like the Iran conflict now with the fertiliser prices and fuel prices and the impact that's having on our costs of production, we're going to see food prices go up. And we're probably not going to see it in a lot of stuff until another 3, 6, maybe 9 months, but it's on its way. And that's on the back of poor government policies and a lack of doing anything about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is just a really tough situation. Charles, we hope that you can continue to fight on and survive and squeeze as much milk out of those cows behind you as you possibly can. But Charles Copey, thanks indeed for joining us.
Quite therapeutic, though, hearing the sound of the farmyard animals.
It is. We should have that in the back of most interviews,
Yeah.
even if it's irrelevant.
A little oink oink, a little moo moo. Anyway, should we speak to our political editor, Christopher Hope? Christopher, the latest, are we expecting to see Wes Streeting pop up at some point soon then?
Yes, imminently. It sits in the hands of the Deputy Speaker, Nuzgani, who is sitting there. Ian Duncan-Smith is speaking now in the House of Commons. I'm not sure if we can throw to the feed now, but watching very closely. I can't divine how many of Wes Streeting's team are around him, but it will be a moment here. Again, let's not forget, Wes Streeting's job now is to appeal for maximum support from Labour backbenchers. He needs 81 MPs to try and then launch his campaign against Keir Starmer. He'd love to get ahead of that, ahead of any results in by-elections, which could bring Andy Burnham back to the House of Commons. So that's why momentum momentum is everything. He appeared to lose some of it last week after resigning and then falling back in the poll released over the weekend of Labour members. He's damaged, I think, according to his allies, by the links to Peter Mandelson. He's disclosed already the WhatsApps to Mandelson. We are getting the files released about the appointment of Mandelson to be the UK ambassador to Washington, published after their break next week, the whip break the MPs take. So I think he's damaged by links to Mandelson. He's also seen quite right-wing for the left-wing Labour Party. He's also, I mean, obviously very sound for them on Brexit, very anti-Brexit and pro-rejoining.
Yes, it's funny that he's seen as sort of a big right-winger, because, I mean, on Gaza, he's massively to what one might think of as the left-wing position. On Europe, he's perhaps the loudest remainer of the potential candidates. I should say that we're looking now at the House of Commons debating the defence aspects of the King's speech. Ian Duncan-Smith speaking now with a rather tatty green bench behind him. I hope they do fix that up at some point.
You're about to talk about his suit. I thought he looks quite sharp.
Restoration and renewal of the House of Commons at some point. But on the front bench we can see John Healey, the Defence Secretary, Luke Pollard, the Defence Minister. But it's not a particularly full House, Chopper.
No, it's
not. And that might be slightly concerning for Wes Streeting.
It's not. And then we're looking at the Labour benches to the left there. I can't see fully where Wes Streeting is on that.
I think he was sitting in the sort of a position behind to the upper right.
Here we go. Wes Streeting now is speaking. We should go to the Commons now.
Can I also begin by saying what a pleasure it is to follow my parliamentary neighbour, the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green, despite our best efforts to retire him at the last general election. The test of any of us in politics is, did we leave things in a better place than we found them? Thanks to the choices made by this Labour government, the NHS is on the road to recovery. Waiting lists fell by 110,000 in March, the single biggest fall in a single month outside of the pandemic for 17 years. Ambulance response times for heart attack and strokes are now the fastest in 5 years. Patient satisfaction with access to general practice has gone from 60% to 75%. And at a time when public trust in politicians is low, we hit our target of recruiting 8,500 more mental health workers 3 years early. And on social care, I'm proud that we're putting in an extra £4 billion worth of investment, that we've delivered the biggest expansion of carers allowance since the 1970s, that the £150 million extra in the Disabled Facilities Grant is providing more dignity, freedom and independence to thousands more disabled people, and that the first ever fair pay agreements will be delivered in social care. Because the people who care for our loved ones should never struggle to care for their own. All made possible thanks to the efforts of the entire NHS and social care team. In the 4.5 years I've led for Labour on health and social care, I've met the best of them. The ones who ran towards danger in Southport and fought to save those children. The ones who scrubbed up and went to work during the pandemic while the rest of us retreated to safety. The ones who bring new life into the world, and the ones who hold our hands at the end. Leading that team has been the greatest joy of my life. And the depth of love and gratitude I have for the people I've worked with is beyond words. The brilliant team of ministers and officials at the Department of Health and Social Care, particularly my private office, and NHS England, and the best team of special advisors in government, and the leaders and frontline staff across this remarkable system. I am rooting for all of them, and for my successor, who has my wholehearted support as he takes on the best job in government. I won't pretend that leaving government hasn't been an emotional wrench. The scars I bear on my abdomen from my cancer treatment are a daily reminder to me of a time in my life, not so long ago, when I wasn't thinking about politics, only survival, and the NHS was there for me when I needed it. Walking through the doors of my department every day, as the person entrusted with protecting the very service that saved my life, has been a massive responsibility and the most enormous privilege, and not one I gave up lightly or hastily. I left the government because we are in the fight of our lives against nationalism. and it is a fight that we are currently losing.
No.
What's happened there?
Well, what a moment just to cut out there.
The fight against nationalism.
Vladimir
For
Putin
the
slipped
first
the
time in
cable
our
snake.
history, nationalists are in power in every corner of the United Kingdom. Scottish and Welsh nationalism represents an existential threat to the future integrity of the United Kingdom. And Reform UK represent a threat to the values and ideals that have made this country great. Values and ideals that are written into the DNA of the National Health Service they would dismantle, given a chance. Its very existence, an act of courage as well as conviction, that healthcare should be provided based on what each of us need, not what any of us can afford. A reminder that even in our darkest hours, this country is capable of doing big things. It is our responsibility to defend that promise and the values it represents, not just for the NHS or even for the survival of this government, but to win the battles we thought that were long since won, of progressives against reactionaries, of patriots versus nationalists, of hope over hate. That is our fight. It's Andy Burnham's fight in Makerfield, and it is Labour's fight for the soul of our country. For too long, and for too often, patriotism in Britain has been left to the loudest voices and the narrowest arguments, as though love of country belongs to one tribe, one party, or one point of view. But the Britain I believe in is bigger than that, because patriotism is not about who you exclude. It is about who you stand beside. It is not rooted in fear of change or suspicion of difference. It is rooted in solidarity, in the belief that we rise or fall together. That is the best of our country's story. A Britain where people from different backgrounds, different faiths, different nations and regions still see themselves in one another. A country where the son of Indian pharmacists can become our first Hindu Prime Minister without having his Englishness questioned. A patriotism built not on blood and soil, but on shared values, shared institutions, and shared responsibilities. I understand that the SNP and Plaid Cymru will not see themselves in the English nationalist politics of the party that sits behind them. But nationalism is not progressive, and nationalism and patriotism are not the same things. Nationalism says, look inward, protect your own, turn away from the others. Patriotism says, this country is strongest when we are confident enough to be outward-looking, generous and united. United, but not always the same. On these benches, we believe in a stronger Scotland and a stronger Wales as part of a fairer United Kingdom. And 28 years ago this week, the people of Northern Ireland took a leap of faith and voted to endorse the Good Friday Agreement, the triumph of hope over bitter enmity, a reminder that a bigger and better politics is possible when people have courage. That is why we must reject the politics that tries to divide us, whether it's dividing the countries of the United Kingdom or the people who call Britain their home. The nurse from Nigeria is not the enemy of the factory worker in Newcastle. The family fleeing war is not responsible for the cost of living crisis. Division is the oldest trick in politics, and Britain deserves better than that. Because the future of this country will not be built by setting neighbour against neighbour. It will be built by renewing the bonds between us, decent jobs, strong public services, safe communities, a place we can call home, and a sense that everyone has a stake in Britain's success. That is the patriotism we need today. Not a brittle nationalism built on grievance, but a confident British patriotism, decent, fair-minded, internationalist, bound together in common endeavour with the conviction that our greatest strength has always been one another. We need to mobilise that spirit as we face the gathering storm. The war in Iran may be over for now, But this fragile peace has not resolved the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz. Even if it were resolved tomorrow, the long-tail consequences for the global economy and the British people will be stark. And the tragedy for this government is that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, has been delivering the fastest growing economy in the G7, falling inflation and lower interest rates. Her hard work undermined by the consequences of a war we did not choose. And I pay tribute to the Prime Minister for keeping us out of it. It will be painful for the British people who have weathered crisis after crisis, some imposed on us, like the wars in Iran and Ukraine and the pandemic. Others, like austerity, Brexit, and Liz Truss's joyride with the British economy, the result of poor political leadership. When I gave my maiden speech 11 years ago, I argued that none of the problems facing our country would be solved by leaving the European Union. Today, in the dangerous and volatile world we find ourselves in, dominated by an unpredictable superpower in the USA, a rising superpower in China, and a failed superpower in Russia, it is even more clear that we would have been better off leading Europe than leaving the European Union. Not despite our sovereignty and the need to control our borders, but to enable those things. This is why I argue for a new special relationship. It is also why I welcome the assurances that the government is strengthening sanctions on Russia to underline our rock-solid support that we have given President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. The front line in Ukraine is the front line for our freedom and democracy, and we are meant to be the party of internationalism and solidarity. It is only too disappointing to see Reform councillors taking down the Ukraine flag when the British people want to fly it in solidarity. It is truly, truly shameful. And of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, NATO's Secretary-General is right to warn today that our alliance has an unhealthy reliance on one ally. We need to invest more heavily in our defence and more rapidly. I know my right honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, and his team do not need persuading on this, nor do they need lectures from the Conservative Party, who ran down our capability and now have the audacity to heckle from the sidelines like the arsonist complaining that the fire brigade hasn't turned up fast enough. I'm with the Secretary of State and his team all the way. But we also, he says, the Shadow Secretary of State says bankrupting the country. I think he's thinking about Liz Truss and the joyride that no doubt he was cheering on. I think a period of silence, or at least an apology, might be welcome from the Conservative front bench. But we also need to recognise that a nation draws its strength from the condition of its people. A recent survey of 16 to 29-year-olds suggested that around half of all young people in this country wouldn't be prepared to fight for it. I'm not so sure about that. I think they would be every bit as brave and self-sacrificing as their grandparents and great-grandparents were, or as their contemporaries holding back the Russians in Ukraine have been. When the cause is just and the need is urgent, they will step up, regardless of what they might have told opinion pollsters. I know this because when this country was facing a dire threat from COVID, young people did step up. The generation least at risk gave up the most to help the rest of us keep safe. And how did Britain repay them? Shortchanging them on their education, layering on debt, making it harder to get on the housing ladder, failing to protect them from the AI jobs apocalypse. This generation is the first left totally exposed to the time-sucking algorithms and perils of social media. The Education Secretary and I have raised our concerns about the impact of this on their learning and their well-being, but I also wonder what it is doing to their sense of connection with community and country. But patriotism isn't a lecture the old deliver to the young. It's a relationship. And for generations, Britain understood that relationship as a social contract. You work hard, you play by the rules, you contribute to society, And in return, you can build a decent life, a secure job, home of your own, a family if you want one, and the hope and conviction that your children will do better than you did. A generation ago, the average home cost around 4 times average earnings. In many parts of Britain today, it is 8, 10, even 12 times earnings. Private rents consume vast proportions of household income. Millions of young people who work hard and do the right thing cannot see a path to home ownership or security. Today, nearly 1 million young people are not in education, employment or training. Many are trapped in insecure work, unable to move out, delaying starting their families, postponing adulthood itself. And layered on top of this economic insecurity is a new technological anxiety. For generations, people believed there was a ladder of advancement, an entry-level job, skills acquired over time, promotion, security, progress. Now many young people fear that artificial intelligence may remove the lower rungs of that ladder altogether. They ask, what skills will still matter? Will there still be routes into stable, middle-class lives for kids from working-class families like mine? Will deindustrialisation be replaced with reindustrialisation and the jobs of the future? Will opportunities extend to our towns, rural and coastal communities, or will inequality become entrenched? These are not irrational fears. They are rooted in real economic change. And unless mainstream democratic politics can answer these questions, others will exploit that vacuum. They already are. Defence is about hard power and capabilities, but it is underpinned by the soft power that binds a country together: pride, belonging, shared activities and institutions, hope. We need to rebuild them for modern times. This is the calling of the Labour Party, brought into existence to champion the interests of the working man and woman, the many, not just the privileged few. It gave this kid from a council estate in Stepney in East London the chance to realise my potential, to go to a great university and spend my career tackling the injustices that hold other kids from backgrounds like mine back. The greatest tragedy of Britain today is that the next generation, for the first time in our modern history, face worse prospects than the last. So the question isn't whether young people would fight for their country, but when their country is going to fight for them. This is our generational challenge. To not only deal with the immediate issues of affordability, small boats and NHS waiting lists, but also to face up to a turbulent world being remade by climate change and the biggest and fastest industrial revolution in the history of the world. To make sure that no one is left behind and no one is held back. That's our job now, as the old economy of the 20th century finally gives way to the AI revolution of the 21st. And to tackle the crisis facing the next generation as an emergency with the urgency that the moment requires. Never waste a minute. That's been my mantra in government, and it's why I don't believe our party has time to waste in government treading water. Because the thing about emergencies is that they make the impossible possible. Look back at the crises we've confronted. We couldn't vaccinate against the deadly virus until we could. We couldn't nationalise the banking system until we could. We couldn't reorient our entire manufacturing base towards building aircraft until we could. We couldn't build hundreds of thousands of homes fit for heroes until we could. In times of greatest peril, our country has been capable of doing big things. We still can. Britain used to punch above its weight in the world. We still can. Each generation used to provide a better future for the next. We still can. Another member of the Cancer Club, the late great bow babe Dame Deborah James, famously said, "Take risks, love deeply, have no regrets, and always, always have rebellious hope." It is with that in mind, and with the belief that we can and must do better, with deep love for my party and my country, with no regrets, and with rebellious hope, that I have left the government. The Labour Party was elected to deliver real change, We still can.
Dr. Andrew Morrison, after which we'll go to a speaking limit of 7 minutes. Dr. Andrew Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I genuinely...
Well, there we have it. The resignation statement of Wes Streeting. He decided to make this a fight between what he described as patriotism versus nationalism. He also had a significant pitch to younger voters, no doubt with those victories for the Greens in the local elections in mind.
Yes, Chris, apparently nationalism is the greatest threat to this country, not perhaps multiculturalism or Islamic extremism.
Interesting summary of last week. So you've got SNP winning in Scotland, Plaid Cymru in Wales, Reform UK are tied second in Scotland, and of course the main opposition in Wales. It's a good point to be made. And no more, the best I can get there of attacking the person who forced him out of government, Keir Starmer's leadership, was no more treading water, time to take risks. I've got no regrets, rebellious hope. He didn't once mention Keir Starmer. He did mention Andy Burnham, of course, who's fighting a by-election and may return to Parliament later this year. It was a pitch for young people, as you say. I mean, look who's around him. Sam Carling, Fred Thomas, Danny Beales, Gordon McKee, David Taylor, Rosie Whiting. These are young people. It was a definite trading down to younger people, giving them, backing them. Maybe that's where the members are. Are they more... I'm not sure how they break on age, actually, frankly, but it was a pitch for the younger votes. No one there around him who are much older. Jez Phillips we spotted on the benches there.
He basically took the famous quote from JFK, ask not what you can do for your country, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He flipped that around. Yeah. He said, no, ask not what young people can do to fight for their country. How about their country fights for them?
Yeah, and he's got a point.
He's got a point
on home ownership, on cost of living, on youth unemployment. He talked about community and country, but not family. The family being those three things are what Reform talk about: family, community, country. So he's going towards kind of the ground where Reform is. He didn't quite go after Keir Starmer like we thought he might. Demand stronger leadership. The kind of Geoffrey Howe attack on Thatcher didn't happen.
Yeah, shall we bring in Claire Coutinho, who's the Shadow Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So, did Wes Streeting make the most of that opportunity?
Well, I found it quite eat, pray, love. It was just a long list of platitudes. And someone once said to me, the interesting thing about speeches is what have you said that other people would disagree with? And I couldn't really find anything in that anybody would disagree with. You know, we need to care about defence. We all agree with that. You know, we care about health. We all agree with that. We care about young people. But what he didn't have any in there was any hard choices. What does he think about Shabana's immigration reforms? We don't know. What does he think about Ed Miliband's net zero ideology, which is crushing jobs? We don't know. All of the big questions were completely unanswered. I don't think we learned anything from that speech. And the thing that I would say is he's meant to be their best communicator. That's their top guy. And I thought it was Keir Starmer, same haircut, same words, you know, maybe a nice bit about young people. But what else was there? Nothing.
Was there anything in there that sets him apart from any of the other Labour front runners, if you want to call them that?
I mean, I couldn't hear it. Like, I couldn't hear a single tough choice that he was saying, or something different. Or, you know, he mentioned the AI revolution. Maybe that was something he said that in quite positive terms. But, I mean, I'm scratching around to try and find something there of substance.
Of course, he did also mention a new EU special relationship. Perhaps that's how he's going to set himself about in this seemingly inevitable leadership contest. One thing that I do want to ask you about, because I know that you were close with Rishi Sunak when he was Prime Minister. And, of course, you were in his cabinet. Wes Streeting started in the early start of this speech saying that he's uncomfortable in a country now dominated by a more nationalist form of discourse, where the English identity of someone like our first Hindu Prime Minister can be questioned openly, and that he wants to return to a patriotic form of discourse, where everyone's included in feeling English, feeling British, batting for the country. What did you make of that distinction? Are you uncomfortable with the way that this discourse has sort of evolved relatively recently in our politics?
Well, look, undeniably, there is a small part of politics at the moment, which is ethno-nationalism. So you can't be part of this nation if you don't have an English ethnic identity. And the two things I would say there is, first, you can't deny that there's an English ethnic identity. Some people try to, but I think that's ridiculous. We don't deny there's a Chinese ethnic identity, a Somalian one, etc. But we don't define nationhood in this country in that tribal bloodline way. We tribal it as being part of a nation, subscribing to the love of nation and the patriotism of nation bound by common law. And I do think that is a worrying trend. But I would say the thing that I worry more about is where is this coming from? And the reason that ethno-nationalism is popping up is because for too long you have had a group of people who say that the English identity should be pushed to the bottom of the pile. The reason that we are great is because we have diversity. That is not the reason this country is great. The reason this country is great is because of the British traditions, the customs, the Enlightenment and the Christian values and all of the things that have built our nation, this law that we all share and have put together. And I worry that it's actually the dismantling of those great traditions, it's the undermining of that national pride that then creates this negative reaction. So yes, I would completely fight ethno-nationalism, but we must fight the sectarianism and the anti-British identity as well.
Yeah, because I think a lot of our viewers watching that will think, well, OK, people don't want to be exclusionary when it comes to, you know, nationalism, patriotism, whatever. But where's the conversation about illegal migration? Where's the conversation about failures in multiculturalism? Where's the conversation about Islamic extremism and far-left activism that we see hounding our streets pretty regularly? It's very easy to talk about sort of nationalism and possibly Reform UK or whatever it is. But it's much more difficult to talk about those tensions.
Yes, there was no mention of sectarianism. OK, we've seen this rise of the Muslim vote in this country. We see people are being told to vote along the lines of which God they pray to. That is, you know, a sectarian worldview which is bringing conflict and strife to our nation. That he doesn't seem to want to address that at all.
It is interesting to look at what we are now seeing. I think it's undoubtedly the start of a Labour leadership contest. As someone is led by quite an unpopular man as things stand, are you a little bit worried that the Labour Party could, under a different leader, turn its fortunes around?
No, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. Before Labour came in, they said a couple of things about growth and planning that I thought, look, this might be a good thing. I actually wanted them to do better because I want the country to do better. And actually, I think it's a very bad situation they've got themselves in with a leader who cannot grip any of the difficult problems the country faces. One of the reasons I backed Kemi Badenoch is because she is willing to make those difficult decisions and fight for them. And that's what I'd like to see from whoever's in charge now and whoever comes next is someone who's going to take on the welfare bill, who's going to spend properly on defence, who's going to fix the problems that we have with growth, take on sectarianism, all of those difficult things.
Claire Coutinho, thanks very much for being with us today. I know we originally brought you in to talk about oil and gas. We'll have to do that another day, but thank you on the hoof so eloquently responding there to Wes Streeting and his resignation statement.
Well, thank you very much indeed for watching Good Afternoon Britain. Thank you to Christopher Hope as well for being in the studio with us. Do not go anywhere because it is, of course, Martin Daubney up next until 6 o'clock. Stick with us.
Absolutely. He'll be with you right after your very latest weather forecast.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Despite the cool and showery May so far, we are looking ahead to a very warm, if not hot, bank holiday weekend. And the gradual trend towards those weather conditions continues during the rest of the day. Showers continuing to ease, although still a fair few around, as high pressure builds in from the south. And that will also introduce something a little warmer and brighter for the afternoon, with clear spells in places continuing overnight, especially towards the east of the UK, the heavier downpours that we're seeing across northern Scotland moving off the scene. There's some more prolonged rain appearing into Northern Ireland, Scotland, North Wales and North West England by the end of the night. Drier to the south and the east. Whether you've got the dry or the damp weather, it is going to be a mild night. Temperatures in some places staying in the teens. Nevertheless, it is gloomy starts to Thursday. We're not quite seeing the sunny and hot weather just yet. And Thursday certainly starts off with extensive low cloud and some mist across Scotland, much of northwest England with persistent and at times heavy rain. Come further south and it's a drying up trend across southern and central parts of England as well as Wales. Some clear spells first thing, but increasingly as we go through the day, we're going to see the cloud break up across many parts of South Wales, central and southern England. Decent spells of sunshine emerging and feeling much warmer as a result. Further north we keep those outbreaks of rain, but they do peter out a little by the afternoon, becoming more showery. Mid to high teens in the north, low to mid-20s further south. We haven't seen temperatures that high for some time, and they're only going to get higher. You can see how the dry and clear weather across the south migrates northwards on Thursday night. By Friday, the damp weather mostly confined to the far north of Scotland. A lot of cloud in the north, but sunnier further south, and temperatures are going to rise significantly up to 30 Celsius in places by Saturday.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. I think GB News is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, "We saw you on television." I say, "Oh yes, on what?" "On GB News."
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hit me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then
We've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. If you just tuned in, where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Oh, it's already lively in this studio. Good afternoon, it's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Dorby Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming up on today's show.
I left the government because we are in the fight of our lives against nationalism. And it is a fight that we are currently losing.
Nationalism. Yeah, they're the new fascists. Let's be honest, that's what he meant. The former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said in a resignation speech that the Labour government is losing the fight against nationalism and that unless we change course, we risk handing the keys of number 10 to reform. We'll have full reactions to this extraordinary statement and outblast from a short moment ago in Parliament. Elsewhere today, 20 members of a rape gang that brutally sexually abused children as young as 12 years old for 5 years were today jailed for a total of 277 years. And today, the grooming gang's inquiry promised it will not shy away from race. But really, is it too little? Too late? Did political correctness lead to the industrial-scale desecration of white, working-class girls by Muslim rape gangs?
That's why we put forward our amendment to the King's Speech for a new UK-EU customs union.
It's Brexit Groundhog Day once again with Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey. He continues to push his agenda that moving closer to the European Union will solve all of the UK's economic and security woes. I'll speak with the party's European spokesperson to find out why this obsession lingers. And Ed Miliband today is at the centre of a slavery storm after Labour backtracked on its pledge to ban slave labour in its net zero supply chain. I'll be joined by the independent anti-slavery commissioner to ask her, does Labour have a slave labour problem? The locals in Crowborough are taking to the streets with volunteer patrols amid growing tensions over a nearby asylum seeker site housing hundreds of male immigrants. I'll be joined by one of those volunteers in head as Crowborough fights back, and that's all coming up in your next hour. Bosh. What planet is Wes Streeting on? Did you just watch the speech by Wes Streeting in Parliament where he was basically, in the same week that Wes Streeting said we should rejoin the European Union, he has the audacity to tell you at home, you're not a patriot. You're not a patriot if you don't agree with the Labour Party. You're a nationalist. Nationalism is the new threat. We all know what they mean by nationalism. They just won't use what they really mean because they're getting too much trouble for saying fascism. Nationalists are the new threat, and you're a nationalist if you want to control borders. You're a nationalist if you have a problem with segregation in Britain. You're a nationalist if you have a problem with sectarian politics, and only voting Labour Party can put this all right. The Labour Party reclaiming patriotism, that is something I didn't have on my bingo card. I thought the speech was astonishing. I thought it was the most tone-deaf speech since Sir Keir Starmer called everybody far right straight after the Southport riots. And Nigel Nelson's got to get 3 hours of this in the neck. Chris Hope is here. We're going to have all the analysis. I think that was incredible. We've got a show ahead tonight. Today, get into GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. Or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines with Sam Francis.